Greetings to you, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. We are here again 3:15 on this Sabbath afternoon, and for you that you have received an informative email, our topic today is reaching the nations. It's a subject that before a couple of weeks ago I have done it here in the Greek audience, and what we're going to deal with is how the church, and by the definition of church I'm talking the Christian church in general, mainstream like Catholic or Orthodox like here in Greece, but also the Protestant denominations, all of them, all inclusive as we say. And what we see today in the church is a kind of apostasy by the means that Christianity seems to lose the grip. Christianity is losing the first apostolic faith and fervor and zeal, and is becoming more and more status oriented and establishment. It's becoming an establishment. And all kind of institutions, according to major studies in the sociology, they go through three phases. The phase of birth, when something is born, let's say the new apostolic church, the state and the phase of establishment, that they get to the highest point, and then you have the corruption and the fallout. And sadly enough, the church, the Christian church, is going from the establishment phase to the third one and the worst. That's why when we read in the Revelation, we have, in the book of Revelation, we have the message to the seven churches, the seven different chronic eras of the Christian church, beginning from the first apostolic church in time of the apostles and Jesus Christ, that himself established Christian church till our days. And we are living at the, not the twilight, but at the end of this world, coming to the borderline of the eternity. We have to see how and in which way we can reach the nations, how we can go to, as we say, to the aggressive evangelism. And there are a lot of techniques and methods and know-how and know-whys. But first we have to see that the church is going through apostasy. And there are challenges to the Christian missionaries nowadays. And I have to say that by missionaries we have the idea, or it comes the picture to us consciously, of someone, preferably from the United States or from Europe, that goes to a third world country and is evangelizing and Christianizing those people that they are idolatrous or atheists or pagan worshippers. No, the places that are missionary field in our time is the developed societies, is Europe and United States, America. The Great Commission that Jesus gave to his apostles in the Gospel of Matthew, all power is given unto me, Jesus said. That's why go and make disciples all over the world. To make disciples includes much more than baptism. And by baptism here we talk when someone is adult, has a conscience here, and can choose that he wants to surrender his life to God. Child baptism is not profit or valid at all. So there is this great commission that Jesus gave is much more than this. Because Jesus said, go and baptize in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them all things that I have shown to you. And the Christian church has fallen short to teach all things what the Bible says. That's why the principle sola scriptura is so important. And the sola scriptura principle is far more higher. We have a problem with a projector, Theodore. And the sola scriptura principle is far more higher than the principle of tradition, or the principle who is right or who is wrong in the dogmatic in the disciplines and all the other stuff. For example, here in Greece, mainstream Christianity is Orthodox. Almost 95% of the Greek population. And Orthodox Church claims the authority of the tradition, these 2,000 years that they have kept the Orthodox. In Greek, Orthodox means to give the right glory. And that's why it says we have the truth. We are the representatives of the Christian church, taken back from Jesus Christ and the apostles till today. Even though that in the Orthodox Church, like in the Catholic, there are a lot of non-biblical traditions, dogmas, and disciplines. And if someone is not following the whole truth and only the truth and nothing but the truth, then there is lie. Jesus said that your father is the devil, said to the Pharisees and the Sadducees, because he was a murderer from the beginning in the Gospel of John. And when he speaks something, he speaks the lie. He was a liar from the beginning. So when someone is coming to me and is professing to have the right faith, and has a lot of good things, because you can find really nice people, really faithful people in any kind of denomination, Christian denomination. We're talking about the principles here, the principalities, and the direction, the system. The people, for sure, they are making the system, but are not this system. So when someone is coming and professing that he has the truth, and is not talking only from the Bible, and I'm not seeing him living according to the standards that he has set up, then I have to be cautious. No matter how much light, quote unquote light, is presenting to me. Anyway, to cut the long story short, today in this world that is going back and forth, up and down, from white to the black and from the left to the right, with all these problems, and I'm not talking about this so-called pandemic here, that's a myth, but with the financial and social and existential and all these kind of challenges and problems, is not interested. The postmodern person today, the average postmodern secular or believer person, is not interested about the dogmatic. Is interested about experiencing this. How much truth, how much win is for me? Is it a win-win to God to me, or a win-lose, or a lose-win? So this great commission to make disciples is much more than the baptism. The baptism is the beginning, is the enrolling to the school of Christ. This is what baptism is all about, is first of all taking away the past sins, surrendering your life to Jesus, acknowledging that you belong to Him, and enrolling to His university that starts from the earth and goes up to the eternity in heaven. The Great Commission involves disciple making, the development of faith-filled, praying Christians who are daily growing in grace, studying His Word, worshipping with His people, and witnessing to the glory of His name. And this comes to fulfill what I said before to you, my friends, is disciple making, first of all, development of personal faith, and fulfilled with a faith that is Bible-based, Christ-centered, and appropriate applied. Then this person is to be a praying Christian, and praying Christian is not, oh Jesus Christ, Son of God, please save me or have mercy on me. It's not a ritual, it's not just you keep on repeating the same babbling. Prayer is the breath of the soul opening to God. Daily growing grace. Growing grace means that I have the assurance of salvation and the 100% certainty of my sanctification. Studying the Word, not the attitudes of men, not the tradition of people. Jesus said to the Pharisees, in vain you say you worship me, you following traditions of men and not my commandments. And I'm just setting shachmat, as we will say in chess, the whole point. When Jesus says in vain, that means whatever you might do or be or say, it's for nothing, because you're going after the traditions of man, not my commandments. Let me give you an example. There are 10 commandments, the Decalogue. And from all these commandments that are logically, any person can understand that they have a rationality, like thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery. That's a wishy-washy command, but anyway. Honor your father and mother, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord in vain, and etc. are very logical. But there is a commandment exactly in the root of the Decalogue: remember the Sabbath day. And we have made a presentation, and we are going to have in the future some more, God's willing. Is it not a wonder that the majority of the Christian world today has forgotten this commandment? And the verb is a commandment, is just not if you want to, is either you do it or not. Remember is not an oxymoron that God says remember, and it seems to me, and perhaps to you, that the whole Christianity has forgotten this commandment. And till today there have been written more than 3,000 doctoral dissertations and essays regarding the Sabbath. It's the only commandment that has never found rest. And this commandment is speaking about rest. So, grow in grace and studying the Word. So if someone is coming to me and said, I have the truth and I have the biblical truth, and we start talking, and I say that has good things and major strength in Christianity, and then comes to these issues, and then says to me, that's not important, that was abolished in the law, it's not important to keep the law, we are under grace, not under the law. You have heard this argument. I'm asking myself, when a police officer is stopping me, and he goes to give me a ticket because I went overhead with a speed limit, and I'm just begging him, and the officer says, okay, I will let you loose, I will give you grace. I'm asking you, how shall I go and leave this police officer? Shall I hit the gas and screaming the wheels and just say, okay, I'm under grace? He gave me an offer, he just forgiven me, I'm paying no price at all and no penalty. So am I going to be worse than before, or even more cautious and more obedient? Grace does not abolish the law, but magnifies the law. Studying the Word, worshipping with His people. That's why perhaps we're going to have a lecture about, or a discussion about, whoa, where is the true church? And what is a church? The real ecclesia in the New Testament. I have to find people that they worship me, they worship like me in the same way that I feel, and I study His Word, I'm growing in grace, I'm a praying Christian, and I'm developing my personal faith. And then, last but not least, witnessing to the glory of His name, that means character. So my friends, it's not just easy come, easy go. Baptism is not the end of the spiritual journey. It is the beginning of a new life of fellowship with Christ in the context of His church. And with church, I'm not talking the buildings. It's the living, active body of people that they are moving towards and are heading to the promised land. When the church fails to nurture new converts, it fails in fulfilling the Great Commission. That means when any kind of church is not nurturing enough this new converts, the Great Commission is over. Is it possible to reverse this Christian church high apostasy rates? And we have great apostasy rates. We have Christians that they are Christmas tree Christians. Christians that they may shine, they may have a lot of decoration, but they have no roots, they are not alive. And that's the difference. Church growth thinkers here list the following reasons why people leave churches. According to some research that have been through United States and in Europe, more in the United States, but I think it's valid also here with us. The first reason is conflict with the pastor or the priest or another church member. That's why they don't go anymore. Discouragement over personal problems. The person is coming, the believer is going to the church to find the resolution for his problems, and soon enough are discouraged because they get no real answer. A lack of friends within the church. We smile, we put our church clothing, and as long as the worship or the service time is there, we hold a mask. By the way, from Monday on here in Greece, it's obligatory to wear a mask for COVID-19. And we do know in science that is not only unhealthy, it brings no benefit. But they obliged us. Now each one has to stand for his own right and his conscience. So I have no personal friendship. And after, either on the Sabbath or a Sunday, it makes no difference a day is a day, at the end of the day. When I go out for 6 days, nobody is visiting me. I see no friends. I receive no phone calls, and etc., and etc. So we are only on the 7th day Christians. A fourth reason is a weak biblical foundation for the personal faith of the believer. The believer is trusting the pastor or the head elder or what the doctrine of the church says, the manual. No personal foundation from the Bible. A fifth reason is a perception that the church is no longer relevant to their needs. The church speaks here, point A, and I am in point B, or in Alpha and I'm in Omega. Elements of New Testament nurture. The New Testament church, the first apostolic church, was a vibrant, hold this word, growing spiritual community. A vibrant, growing spiritual community. Throughout the book of Acts, in the New Testament, if we read, there is evidence believers were involved in the following. First of all, a meaningful devotional life. If you read Acts chapter 4, verse 13 and verse 31. Second, a spiritual network of small groups in house-to-house fellowship. The first church was initiated in the houses, and is going to finish like this. Not in buildings, not in temples and so forth. Started in the house, it will finish there. Acts 2, verse 42. There was a corporate worship and praise through Sabbath worship and biblical preaching. In the Sabbath, on the Sabbath day, not on Sunday. Sunday has nothing to do with the Bible. It's not an attitude of the New Testament church. It's something that has been imposed years after because of tradition and because for political and other reasons. So when a church is coming and says, I worship on Sunday, from that point on, they have no biblical foundation. You can search the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, you will find not even a single verse that pinpointing to the Sunday observance, but you will find time and again about Sabbath. So I'm asking someone, a person that is seeking the glory of God, how you will worship somewhere in a church that is not worship according to the induction and the commandments of the Lord Jesus Christ. How you can claim to be a Christian when you go against Christ. Active community involvement through witnessing. Acts 6, chapter 6, verse 7 and Acts chapter 8, verse 4. The church and spiritual life. What are the indicators of spirituality in the life of a believer is the question. Because we pinpoint and we trace back the apostasy, so we can, if we find the root of the problem, we can go forward to preach to nations. How can I go as a unity in community service or as a person to go to preach the glad tidings, the good news, if I don't have a backup, if I didn't have settled up things very important for me and my personal biblical foundation? What are the indicators of spirituality in the life of a believer? Psalm 85, verse 6 and 7. That was the psalmist's question. Will you not revive us again, that your people may rejoice in you? Show us your mercy, O Lord, and grant us your salvation? David asked. And Habakkuk, he was praying, "Oh Lord, revive your work in the midst of the years." That's why this good lady that I cherish very much, her name was Ellen G. Harmon, or Ellen G. White, in one of her books, and I have the privilege that I have read all of her writings, I mean all of them, and I believe in everything that this good lady has written. In First Selected Messages, page 124, she writes, "There is nothing Satan fears so much." Now, can Satan fear something? Yes. Apart from God himself, he fears so much as that the people of God. Now, I stop here and I make a parenthesis. Many people think, and I used to believe as well when I was so-called Orthodox Christian. Now I'm Christian just like this. I follow Christ. I'm a disciple of Christ. I don't want to have any adjectives in front of my Christianity. Last Tuesday, God gave me the grace, and we have a national-wide radio program, and I have said that about what is an archbishop. Archbishop is a priest that has succeeded to get higher than Christ himself, than the high priest that is Jesus Christ, or the Pope, even worse. Now, I used to believe that Satan is, after I have seen The Exorcist, the movie, that what Satan is trembling is the sign of the cross. If I wear my cross here, or I have some amulets and I have this and that, or if I say the Rosary, or I say the Hail Mary, or a prayer from a saint, left or right. No. Or if I take the Bible and show him the Bible like this, has the sign of the cross, and the devil trembles. Or if I do this, make my cross, and no. Devil can laugh at us. By the way, if you show to the devil the Bible, he will take the Bible and smash it in your face. He will have no problem with that. And that's why a preacher has said that on Sunday or on the Sabbath morning, before you enter the church, your congregation, Satan and his demons may come and roll over and sit in front, at the front here. He has no fear. In the Middle Ages, they used to do a lot of crosses in the vitro, in the glasses, in this way to take away and to throw away the evil spirits. No. There is nothing Satan fears so much as that the people of God, now listen to that, shall clear the way by removing every hindrance, so that the Lord can pour out his Spirit upon a languishing church and an impenitent congregation. This is what Satan trembles and fears. Could it be, I'm asking you and me, that God is calling the Christian church to a deeper spirituality than many of our members in our churches have even considered? Is it possible that the greatest need of church leadership is spiritual revival and reformation? Could it be? Spiritual renewal defined. What's a spiritual revival or renewal? A reawakening of the dormant energies of the soul of each individual member. Secondly, a revitalization of spiritual life. A revival of prayer, Bible study, and witnessing, this Trinity. A recommitment to knowing God as life's single greatest priority. Now that's very important. Those that they put God first, last, and best are the most happiest people upon the earth, no matter what will happen or the life throws at them. Richard Foster, in the book Celebration of Discipline, he's writing, page 1 in the preface, superficiality is the curse of our age. The doctrine of instant satisfaction is a primary spiritual problem. The desperate need today is not for a greater number of intelligent people. By the way, intelligent people created the 2 world wars. Intelligent people in Auschwitz and Dachau, scientists, even medical doctors, they did all these atrocities. And they have done it in Africa, in India, even today. So the need is not a greater number of intelligent people or gifted people, but for deep people. People, they have a depth. Superficiality is the curse. A.W. Tozer, The Divine Conquest, page 22. May not, the author asks, may not the inadequacy of much of our spiritual experience be traced back to our habit of skipping through the corridors of the kingdom like children in the marketplace, chatting about everything but pausing to learn the true value of nothing? Wow. Philippians chapter 3 verse 10, I'm reading from Amplified Bible. What was the Paul's priority? For my determined purpose, or I am determined, is that I may know him. He's talking about Jesus Christ. That I may become progressively more deeply and intimately acquainted with him, perceiving and recognizing and understanding the wonders of his person more strongly and clearly. That was Apostle Paul's priority. What is yours? And if we analyze this priority, and this Paul, he had a lot of degrees, and he has such a revelation from God that even Peter writes in one of his epistles that our brother Paul, with the wisdom that is given from God, has said many things, some of them that are so hard to understand that the scoffers are diverting and, changing to their own distraction. Even Peter said that what Paul is writing is sometimes hard to grasp, but is not far beyond from understanding if you just take time to get more deeper. So if we analyze the priority of Paul, first of all, Apostle Paul was determined, his determined purpose to know Jesus personally. I don't want to know God through a priest, through a pastor, through a system. I want to go directly. In the Gospel of John, it is written in chapter 10, I believe, if I'm not wrong, that there were 10 Greeks that went to the one disciple and said, we want to see Jesus. And in the ancient Greek manuscript that we hold here, the verb that is used has such a strong affirmation. We are desperately, passionately want to see Jesus. We don't want the disciples, we want Jesus. Do you have a church that every week, at least once in a week, either on Sabbath or Sunday, I'm telling you it doesn't make any difference, is giving you Jesus directly, and you don't see the pastor or the priest or the rituals and all the traditions and all the Kyrie-elation? What are you seeing in this church? So Paul's priority was to know Jesus, progressively becoming more intimately acquainted with him. He wanted to have an intimacy, and he wanted to understand the wonders of his person more clearly, to be glasklar, says the German. If we study the world population from 1950 to 2050, we see here we have a 2.5 billion people, and then we reach here 2020, more than 7 billion people, and by 2050, if God has not come, and I hope and pray and I wish and I know that he will come earlier, will be around the almost 10 billion people. National Geographic, nearly 45% of the world's population now live in urban areas. The world today has 41 cities with 5 million or more people, and 23 more are expected to join the ranks by 2015, as written at that time. All but 11 will be in the developing world. Urbanization is occurring fastest in developing countries, not in Europe, in Western Europe and United States anymore. And we see the global population here by billions, and with the blue line is the total population, and the green is the rural, and yellow is the urban population. And we see from that point here, from mid-2002, we see that the rural population is going down and the urban is going up. And we have challenges. The top 10 world metropolitan areas in 2005, in Tokyo, 36.5 million people, in New York, 22 million, Mexico City, 22, Seoul, South Korea, 21, Bombay, India, 19, Sao Paulo, and you see the card here, I don't have to read all of it. The world's largest cities in 1770, the first mega city was Peking. In 1815 was London with 1.3. In 1900, super city was London with 6.5 million, and New York with 4.2 from Barrett and Johnson World Christian Trades. And from that point on, 1923, New York, and 2025 will be Bombay, and by 2050 the world's largest city will be Lagos. And over the next 24-hour period, these average increases will occur. Cities over 50,000 population, double. Metropolises over 100,000, one. Urban dwellers, 190,000. Non-Christian urbanities, 129,000. And urban Christians, 61,000. And over the next 24-hour periods, these average increases will occur in non-religious by 16,700 and by atheists 1,200. The percentage of urban population, the total population in India, and you see how it's going higher and higher every year. And what's secularization? What's the definition? Is the process through which religious thinking, practice, and institutions lose their religious and or social significance. The concept is based on the theory held by many sociologists that as societies become industrialized, their religious morals, now watch out this, values and institutions give way to secular ones, and some religious traits become common secular practices. Simple speaking is like I have the form of godliness, but I deny the power of it, what Paul wrote before 2,000 years. That's the definition of secularization. That means I'm Christian, but I'm a Christian, I'm a Christmas tree Christian. Top 5 major religions of the world, ranked by number of adherents. Christianity, even today, is the grossest. Islam, then you have the secular, as you see the numbers here, Hinduism, and Chinese traditional. And the ratio of secular to Christians, now what's this? In 1800, you have one secular for 661 Christian. And in 1970, the ratio was one secular to 1.8. By 2005, you have one secular with 2.5 Christians. That means it's not that the secular people are increasing, it's that decreasing the real Christians. That's the problem. And Winfried Rommel has written, when the sun is shining, as it has on Europe for so long since the war, people feel they don't need God. That's the problem. Sorry. In the United States, the average American watches more than 4 hours of TV each day. I'm not counting internet or smartphone. Or 20 hours per week, or 2 months non-stop watching per year. That means from the 12 months, the 2 months is just gliding on the, hooked on the TV and just watching there. Internet, laptop, tablet, or smartphone, that's another story. Only in TV. So who's educating who? And with what? In a 65-year life, the person will have spent 9 years glued to the tube. The researchers conclude. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 9. You who tell good news to Zion, go up on a high mountain. You who tell good news to Jerusalem, lift up your voice with strength. Lift it up. Don't be afraid. Say to the cities of Judah, behold your God. Zechariah chapter 8 verse 20, thus said the Lord of hosts, it shall yet come to pass that there shall come people and the inhabitants of many cities. Now, see the prophecy? And the inhabitants of one city shall go to another, saying, let us go speedily to pray before the Lord and to seek the Lord of hosts. It is written. Kevin Graham Ford, Jesus for a New Generation, page 131. It's not easy to reach the current generation by arguing with them, but it's easy to reach them by loving them. How you can reach nations? By arguing. doctrinal issues and juxtapositions. No, by loving them, now we have to define what's love all about. What's love got to do with it? The singer used to sing. From the Institute of Church Ministry, Roger Dudley, it has not been very successful generally in metropolitan areas, especially in inner cities. Many of these large metropolises have become secular, like New York, London, Tokyo, and Shanghai, or who have no time for him in their lives. At any rate, the future growth of the church lies in city evangelism. So these great cities, for sure, all over the world, but these great cities has a lot of people inside that have no interest, real interest, for the truth. The challenge of the cities is massive, but the challenge is more than numerical. The issue is not to grow in numbers, but to grow in quality, not in quantity. What are the challenges? Scores of different ethnic and language groups within each city. You see it nowadays. Displaced people and the resultant fragmentation of life. Crime and fear. Vast slums. More than 1 billion people worldwide live in slums today that we are speaking. A multitude of subcultures are another challenge. Youth, yuppies, homeless, street children and orphans, gangs, multiple professional groups like police, taxi drivers, and etc. and etc. That's why the church has to combine to be one with the society, not like the world, but to be inside the society. 1.1 billion people live in extreme poverty. And now, after this pandemic, the financial collapse will be really of biblical proportion. Now, this 1.1 billion was when the world population was 5 billion. Now that we're 7.5, this number has gone up to the sky high. Prevalence of hunger can be as high as 30% of the country's population in some regions of the world. 12 million American children experience hunger each year. How much more in other countries of the world? When in the United States, children experience hunger. Imagine what happened in third world countries. Up to 70% of rural areas in some regions of the world lack access to good sanitation. That's a major health problem. 4.9 million affected with HIV only in 1 year. 3.1 million deaths due to HIV in that year alone. End of 2003, AIDS left 15 million orphans. That's a huge number. Where is the pandemic? Why for 200,000 people dead, that the half of them are not because of COVID-19, it's because of seasonal flu A or B that has been false positive like this, or they have 2 or 3 subjective diseases. For 200,000, they are precious souls. But now, what about these 15 million orphans? Illiteracy rate of the world is 18.3, age 15 and over. The statistics are from UNESCO, are not mine. An estimated 3% of the global population, or 805 million people, consume illicit drugs annually. Christian Schwartz, Natural Church Development. Now, listen what he says. Healthy churches share 8 basic and dynamic quality characteristics. 2 of these directly point to a church that is active in its ministry to the community. Healthy churches engage in need-oriented evangelism. They also have a very high loving relationship quotient. It's a different story to say, my wife, I love you. And different way to say, I love you. It's not a lip service, but a heart service. In other words, Christian Schwartz concludes, the church is involved in the community, understands its needs, and seeks actively. Now, let me pause here. When the church understands the community needs, the need of the community is not to make vegetarian ways of cooking and vegetarian presentations and how to be a vegetarian or how to quit smoking and alcohol or how to quit meat or dairy products. All of them are good lifestyle contributions. But the need of the society, the need of the society today in Greece, with all this corruption, political corruption, financial problems and poverty, and what will come upon us, and with the Troika and all these things that we have done with European Union and under the yoke of Germany and the Brussels, we have other priorities. To go to a Greek, a person that has finished university and is unemployed, and he has to pay a lot of debt, to talk to him about God and spirituality and to surrender his life out of the context is irrelevant to him. Or to an unemployed person that takes a salary in Greece, there are people that work in a month's salary, 300 euros the whole month. And if they have to pay 400 euros or 300 euros only for the rent, what they will give for the family. When you go to him and say, be a vegetarian and buy an almond drink with 5 euros because cow's milk is not okay, he will look at you, laugh and say, just get off my back. So the church understands the community needs and seeks, now listen, it's very important, actively and lovingly to meet these needs as a way of communicating the love of God. It's not to show that I'm actively embracing this and I'm expressing love just to join my herd and become a member and to show numbers. And they say, you see, I have baptized this, or my church has this, and to establish the position. A healthy church must be active in relating with society. It must first listen to the needs of the community. I have learned from my mentor, bless his heart, in Korea, Dr. Sang Lee. He was and still is my mentor, and he has taught me not only about the programs, but he has taught me ethics, morality, and the Bible. That was in a profound way, and I'm very honored for that, and I will keep on remembering him. I will never forget him. He's a good buddy of mine, even though he's, I don't know, 75 now, 78, there in Korea. I have to be a good speaker. You have to be a good listener. As we say in Greece, you have to shut the mouth and make your 2 ears like a pizza, giga size, and listen, really listen. It must first listen to the needs of the community it has been called to reach, and then respond proactively to meet these needs. Norman Sachak, benchmark of quality in the church. Biblical imperative, John chapter 13, verse 35, it is written, has been said by the Lord himself just before his death. By this, all, how many? All will know that you are my disciples if you keep the Sabbath or Sunday, if you tithe the money, if you are vegan, vegetarian, if you don't smoke, don't drink, don't eat pork, if you exercise, if you have 6-pack, 8-pack, no pack. If you believe in evolution or creation, no, by this they will know all people. When Jesus said that they will know, it will not refer that they will become members of the church or obey, but they will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. 1 John chapter 4, verse 7 and 8. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. He who does not love does not know God, for God is love. No other book says this. Quran never says that Allah is love. Allahu Akbar. Allah ilallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. But the Hindu religion, all other religions never mention that their God is love. They may say has, express, power, love, but the only book that says God is love is the Bible. 1 John chapter 4. By this we know love, because he laid down his life for us. And we also ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. But whoever has this world's goods and sees his brother in need and shut up his heart from him, how does the love of God abide in him? My little children, let us not love in word or in tongue, but in deed and in truth. This is what the world needs today, deeds and truth. James chapter 1 verse 27, pure and undefiled religion before God and the Father is this, to visit the orphans and widows and their trouble and keep oneself unspotted from the world. Matthew chapter 25 verse 33 to 36, and he will set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on his right hand, come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. Why? For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was stranger and you took me in. What is the greatest hunger and thirst in the world? For food. For non-profit, non-government organizations to go and to make shelters and this and so. No. It's for the bread of life and the water of life, for the word of God. I was naked and you clothed me. You didn't give me clothes. The robe of righteousness of Jesus Christ. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. I was in prison and I was sick because of sin and you gave me salvation. This is the difference. Acts chapter 6 verse 7. Can you have a break? Just break. Can you put that? Βάλε το διαφημιστικό. Just 1 minute break. We have a thing here. Sorry for the small interruption. We have a technical challenge here, but we just solved it very quickly. Thanks to the technician here, Theodore. God bless him. The real hunger and thirst in every soul is the hunger and thirst for the Word of God. We are naked after the original sin, and God clothed us with His robe of righteousness. We are in prison and sick to death from sin, but He offers healing and salvation. Acts chapter 6 verse 7, and the word of God spread, and the number of the disciples multiplied greatly in Jerusalem, and a great many of the priests were obedient to the faith. What the world needs today is a church full of Daniels, if you have read his story, working daily in society, being the salt of the earth to the government of two great world empires, Babylonian and Medo-Persian. What the world needs today desperately is a handful church of Esther, who despite great personal peril was willing to risk all to help save the lives of millions of people about to face horrible death. And by the way, there is a lot of prophetic significance in the book of Esther, because Esther was a woman, was a princess, was a queen, symbolized the true church. And her people, because there was one decree one night, they will be all put to death, and she risked everything to go to the king, to appeal to the king. If I perish, I perish, to save her people. How much willingness is in the Christian church today to save the lost souls? What the world needs today is a church full of Dorcases. It is in Acts, who by their love in action touch the lives of society and give clear witness to the real love of the God they served. Luke chapter 4, verse 17 to 19. Preach the gospel to the poor. It was the beginning of the earthly ministry in that Sabbath morning when he was given the scroll of the prophet Isaiah. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives and a recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed. That was Jesus' definition of his work. So, what we need today to reach the nations is not to preach by word only in theory, but in deed and in truth. Truth will set us free, and when the Son of Man is setting you free, then you are free indeed. Real freedom comes only and by the way that Jesus gives this life experiencing, changing in you and me. And this will take place when you let God abide in you and you let Christ walk with you. Walk with me and thou shalt be perfect. It is written time and again in the Holy Book. So, my plea to you, and at the same time is my prayer, is that we all, I including myself, will be like Daniel, like Esther, like Dorcas, like Paul, like John the Baptist, all these personalities that we think that they are heroes of faith. They had their shortcoming, but they have a willingness to know God personally, intimacy with Him, and to experience in everyday life this personal friendship. And the expression of love, the divine love, the agape love, as we say in our language in Greece, is the ultimate expression of divinity upon humanity. That's why God, in His divine form, dressed our human nature, and He took the form of a servant, and He was obedient to the death. Paul says in Philippians, the death of the cross, because He humbled Himself. That's why God the Father raised His name so high that every knee will bow down and every mouth will acknowledge that Jesus is the Lord in the glory of the Father. I pray till next Sabbath that you're rejoicing in His grace, you study the Word. The principle of sola scriptura, sola gratia, and sola fide has to be the motto of your life. That you're active in your community, you are listening the needs of this community, and you are praying and engaging in ways that the Lord will show you to be the salt of the earth. I wish you all the best. May God bless you and keep you. Thank you.